The more you chase, the faster they run. The more you let go, the faster they return. That's not just a saying, my friends. That's the cold truth of life, of love, of human psychology. And today, I'm going to open your eyes to something you may have never heard before. Why is it that when you give your all, when you pour your heart, your attention, your energy into someone, they seem to treat it like it's nothing? Yet the moment you step back, the moment you pull away, suddenly you become the only thing on their mind. Strange, isn't it? But it's not strange at all. It's human nature. Before we go deeper, press that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to share will change how you see relationships forever. And I don't want you to miss a single thing. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk into a candy store. There are buckets and buckets of candy overflowing everywhere, piles stacked higher than your head. At first, you grab a few pieces, but then you stop caring. Why? Because there's too much. It's everywhere. You could have it any time you wanted, so the sweetness fades. Now imagine the same store, but this time, there's only one golden piece locked behind glass. Suddenly, that one piece becomes priceless. Everyone wants it. And if you can't have it, you'll think about it day and night. That's how people are with attention, with love, with presence. Abundance breeds indifference. Scarcity breeds obsession. My friends, here's the lie we've been fed, that if we give more, they'll love us more. That if we prove ourselves, if we show up every single time, if we never let them feel our absence, then they'll never leave us. But reality hits hard. The more predictable you are, the more invisible you become. The more you chase, the more they pull away. Seneca once said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." And isn't that true? When you give yourself too freely, you stop being seen. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should be cold, cruel, or heartless. No, my friends. What I'm telling you is that your worth isn't proven by chasing. It's proven by detaching. It's proven when you can stand tall in silence, when you can let go of what you cannot control, and when you realize the truth Marcus Aurelius wrote centuries ago. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Think about it. The tree that bends with every little breeze gets uprooted in the storm, but the oak that stands firm, unshaken, becomes untouchable. That's the kind of man you must become. When you detach, when you stop handing over your emotions like spare change, you transform. You stop being a beggar for attention and start being a force of gravity. They can't help but feel the pull, not because you demanded it, but because your silence, your strength, your self-respect echo louder than any words. And let me add a little humor here. Ever notice how when you ignore your phone for a few hours, suddenly everyone remembers you exist? Notifications pile up, people call back, they wonder where you've been. But when you're glued to it all day, nothing. Silence. That's the paradox of desire, my friends. People crave most what they can't fully control. So here's my challenge to you. Stop giving yourself away like your cheap candy. Become the golden piece behind glass. Be rare, be valuable, be untouchable. Because the man who doesn't need approval, the man who doesn't beg, the man who doesn't chase, that man becomes unforgettable. Stay with me, because we're just getting started. And right now, I want you to write this in the comments. Detachment is my power. Say it, own it, live it. And while you're at it, press that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because what's coming next will shake the way you see yourself and the way they see you forever. 3 words, my friends. Detachment is power. Number 1, the scarcity trigger. Why they crave what they can't control. What is rare is always more precious than what is common. Let that sink in for a moment, my friends. That one truth has shaped wars, empires, love stories, and heartbreaks. And it's the same truth that explains why they seem to slip away when you give everything but suddenly crave you when you pull back. Scarcity has always been the engine of desire. They don't obsess over what's always available. They obsess over what they can't control. Picture this. Imagine you're holding a glass of water. Nothing special, right? You can pour it out, spill it, drink it, or even waste it. Why? Because water is everywhere. But now imagine you've been stranded in the desert for 3 days, lips cracked, throat burning, every cell in your body screaming for hydration. Suddenly, that same glass of water becomes the most valuable thing in the world. You would give anything for it. You would obsess over it. That's the difference scarcity makes. When something feels infinite, they stop caring. But when something feels rare, they can't stop craving it. And here's the hard truth, folks. When you gave them endless attention, constant reassurance, your time at the snap of their fingers, you turned yourself into that overflowing glass of water. They didn't value it. They didn't fear losing it. Why would they? You trained them to believe you would always be there. You created abundance, and abundance kills desire. But the moment you detach, the moment you stop pouring into them like a never-ending fountain, suddenly they feel thirsty. Suddenly they realize your presence wasn't just ordinary, it was the very thing that gave them comfort, validation, and security. That's when the obsession begins. Now, let me ask you this. Why do you think they never noticed your worth when you were giving it freely? Why did they only start to look back once you walked away? Because the human mind is wired to ignore what feels guaranteed. They expect the sun to rise every morning, so they don't stop to marvel at it. But the moment an eclipse hits, everyone runs outside, staring in awe, snapping pictures, holding on to the rare moment they might never see again. That's you, my friend. You were the sun, reliable, constant, expected. And so you were taken for granted. But the moment you eclipse yourself, the moment you pull away, the whole world stops to notice. This is where the fear creeps in for them. They begin to wonder, why isn't he calling anymore? Why doesn't he check in like before? Has he found someone else? Did I lose my grip on him? And those questions sting because they never thought they'd have to ask them. They thought you were theirs forever. They thought your energy had no limits. But when you detach, you force them to confront the terrifying truth. They never owned your loyalty. They only borrowed it. And now that it's gone, their mind runs wild, replaying memories, searching for cracks, questioning themselves. That's not love at first. It's fear. But fear is the seed from which obsession grows. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." When you spread yourself too thin, when you make yourself too available, you dilute your value. But when you learn to withdraw, when you learn to hold back, your worth multiplies. That's not manipulation, that's discipline. That's knowing your energy is not infinite, and not everyone deserves a lifetime supply of it. Of course, this isn't easy. It's hard to step back when everything in you wants to reach out, when your heart screams to call, to text, to explain yourself, to prove your worth. It feels unnatural, almost cruel. But let me break another lie for you. The idea that giving more will somehow fix everything. That if you just love harder, sacrifice more, they'll wake up and finally see you. That's the lie that keeps people trapped, bleeding themselves dry for someone who won't even notice. But the truth is simpler and sharper. They don't see your worth because you don't force them to. You keep handing it over like loose change, and they spend it carelessly. Detachment teaches them the cost. Think of a rare diamond. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It doesn't lower its price just because no one bought it today. It sits in silence, locked in glass, shining regardless of who walks past. And when someone finally realizes what they missed, they'll pay anything to claim it. That's the posture of detachment. You don't beg for attention. You don't chase validation. You sit in your worth. And in time, they can't help but notice the glow they lost. My friends, let me remind you of what Epictetus said. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things beyond our control, their attention, their choices, their affection. Those are beyond your control. But your presence, your silence, your discipline, that belongs to you. And when you guard it, when you stop giving it out like it costs nothing, you shift the entire dynamic. You stop being predictable. You stop being ordinary. You become the one they can't pin down, can't predict, can't control. And that's when they start to crave you. They'll resist it at first. They might even act like they don't care. But make no mistake, the silence eats at them. Your absence whispers louder than your presence ever did. Every unanswered call becomes heavier. Every unreturned message becomes a question mark in their mind. They'll scroll through old conversations, replay your voice in their head, even imagine you in someone else's arms. That's the torment of scarcity. It doesn't let the mind rest. And that's your power, folks. Not in chasing, not in begging, not in giving endlessly, but in holding back, in becoming rare, in becoming the diamond locked behind glass. Because here's the paradox. The less you give, the more they crave. The moment you no longer need them, that's the moment they begin to need you. So stand tall. Don't fear scarcity. Embrace it. Don't fear silence. Use it. Don't fear detachment. It is your power. When you stop being the overflowing glass of water and become the rare oasis in the desert, they will walk miles just for a drop. Write this in the comments to make it yours. My scarcity creates desire. Show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that you're no longer begging to be seen. You're becoming rare. You're becoming powerful. You're becoming unforgettable. And stay with me, because what comes next will take this even deeper and reveal how silence itself becomes the most irresistible sound they'll ever hear. Number 2. The weight of silence. Why they can't escape the void. Silence is a source of great strength. Lao Tzu said that centuries ago, and it still shakes the ground today. Think about it. Strength isn't always in what you say, but in what you refuse to say. And when it comes to relationships, silence carries a weight no words could ever carry. My friends, this is the truth most people never realize until it's too late. Silence is not emptiness. It is not a weakness. It is power. It is the invisible hand that grips the mind and refuses to let go. Picture this. You've been in a room where the music suddenly cuts off, haven't you? For hours the song played in the background and you barely noticed it. It was just there, filling the air. But the moment the music stopped, everyone looked up. The silence was deafening. You could feel it pressing down on you. That's what your absence does to them. When you were always talking, always explaining, always reassuring, your voice became like background music. Comforting, yes, but also taken for granted. But the moment you go silent, the moment you step back and say nothing, suddenly that silence is all they hear. And it doesn't fade. It grows louder every day. Now here's where their fear starts to creep in. At first, they may smile and think, good, finally some space. They may even convince themselves they don't care. But silence is tricky. It doesn't announce its power right away. It lingers, it waits, and slowly it begins to eat at them. They lie in bed at night and wonder, why hasn't he texted me? Did he stop caring? Is he with someone else? Did I push him too far? They replay every moment, every word, every mistake. The silence forces them to write the story themselves, and here's the twist. The mind always writes scarier stories than reality. The Stoics knew the value of this kind of restraint. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. Silence is the embodiment of that wisdom." Think about that, my friends. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain why you're pulling back. In fact, the less you explain, the more powerful you become. Because while you're calm, collected, silent, they're the ones arguing with themselves. They're the ones trying to make sense of the void you left behind. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't silence cruel? Isn't it unfair? Let me break that lie for you. Silence is not cruelty, it's clarity. Words can be twisted, pleas can be ignored, explanations can be dismissed. But silence cannot be denied. It sits in the room with them like a shadow they can't escape. It haunts them when they scroll through their phone, waiting for your name to light up. It gnaws at them when they post something just to see if you'll react. And when you don't, the silence screams louder than any message ever could. Dark psychology has a term for this. It's called the need for feedback. Human beings crave reactions. Every joke, every post, every move. It's all designed to pull a response from others. When you refuse to react, when you give them no feedback, their brain doesn't rest. It replays the moment over and over. It asks questions with no answers. And the longer those questions go unanswered, the more restless their mind becomes. That's how silence transforms into obsession. It's not about what you say, it's about what you don't say. Let me give you another metaphor. Imagine walking into a library late at night. The place is huge, endless rows of books. But it's empty. No voices, no footsteps, nothing. The silence in that room feels heavy, almost alive. You become hyper-aware of every little sound, the creak of the floor, the rustle of your breath. That's what your silence does to them. It magnifies everything they feel. It makes their insecurities louder, their doubts sharper, their regrets heavier. You don't have to lift a finger because your silence does the work for you. And here's why it's so difficult for them. They're used to control. They're used to pulling strings and getting a reaction. They're used to seeing you respond, angry, sad, emotional, eager. But when you detach and go silent, you break the script. You refuse to play the part they wrote for you. And when the script breaks, their mind panics. It's like watching a movie with the last 20 minutes missing. You can't stop thinking about how it ends. That's what your silence becomes for them, an unfinished story. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And in your silence, you show them the greatest reaction of all, none. You show them that their presence, their games, their validation no longer control you. That unsettles them. That shakes them to their core, because it proves something terrifying. You don't need them anymore. And when they realize that, obsession begins. Now, let's be honest. This won't be easy for you. Silence feels heavy on your side too. You'll be tempted to break it, to reach out, to fill the void. But remember this, every time you break silence, you relieve their discomfort and rob yourself of power. Silence isn't about punishing them, it's about disciplining you. It's about showing yourself that you can hold back, that you can stay composed, that you can master the art of restraint. And when you do, they'll feel it more deeply than any word you could ever speak. So here's my question for you, my friends. Are you willing to let silence work for you? Are you willing to sit with the discomfort, knowing that on the other side of it lies clarity, power, and freedom? Because the truth is simple. The one who controls their tongue controls the dynamic. And in a world full of noise, the man who stays silent becomes unforgettable. Think of silence as a mirror. When you hold it up, they don't see you, they see themselves, their fears, their insecurities, their mistakes. And that's why silence haunts them. It doesn't remind them of what you did. It reminds them of what they did. That reflection burns, and the more they see it, the more they obsess. So take this truth with you. Your silence is not weakness. It is strength. It is not the absence of words. It is the presence of power. When you hold your tongue, when you master your emotions, when you stop explaining yourself, you force them to face what they've lost. And that weight, that void, that echo, it will follow them everywhere. Write this in the comments if you're ready to claim it. My silence is my strength. Say it, own it, show it to the world. Let them see you no longer need to shout, because your silence speaks louder than anything. And stay with me, because what's coming next will show you how mastering your emotions doesn't just make you attractive, it makes you magnetic, a force they cannot escape. Number 3, emotional self-mastery. Why they can't resist the man who controls himself. No man is free who is not a master of himself. Those words from Epictetus hit like lightning, my friends, because they cut through every excuse, every lie we tell ourselves when emotions take control of our lives. Think about it. How many times have you watched someone unravel because they couldn't hold their feelings? How many times have you seen a man beg, explode, or fall apart just because someone else didn't give him what he wanted? That's not love. That's not power. That's slavery. And it's the fastest way to kill attraction. Now here's the hard truth. They expect you to be reactive. They expect you to get jealous when they test you, to argue when they provoke you, to panic when they pull back. They expect your mood to rise and fall depending on their attention. And when you play into that, when you hand them the keys to your emotions, you make yourself predictable. And predictable, my friends, is boring. Predictable is powerless. Picture a storm at sea. The waves crash, the winds howl, the lightning splits the sky. Most ships toss and turn, breaking apart under the pressure. But then there's one ship that doesn't panic. Its captain knows the storm is temporary. He doesn't waste his energy screaming at the thunder. He doesn't curse the rain. He keeps his hands firm on the wheel, steady, unshaken, guiding the vessel through chaos. That's what emotional self-mastery looks like. And that's what makes you magnetic. While everyone else is sinking, you remain untouchable. Let's break another lie here. Society tells you that showing every emotion is strength, that if you cry louder, yell harder, or plead deeper, you're somehow being authentic. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of emotional self-mastery, not suppressing your feelings, but controlling them. Not pretending you don't care, but choosing when, where, and how you show it. That control unsettles people. Why? Because they can't manipulate a man who doesn't react. And here's the paradox. When you don't react, when you stay composed, when you keep calm in the face of their games, their absence, or their words, it doesn't make you cold. It makes you powerful. They start to wonder, why isn't he affected? Why doesn't he care? Why doesn't he chase like everyone else? And those questions grow into curiosity. Curiosity becomes challenge, and challenge becomes obsession, because the human mind is addicted to control. And when they realize they can't control you, their desire for you intensifies. Dark psychology calls this the forbidden power dynamic. People crave influence over others, but the moment that influence is denied, the craving turns into obsession. Think about it. When a door is always open, you barely notice it. But lock that same door, and suddenly everyone wants to know what's behind it. That's what happens when you master your emotions. You lock the door to your reactions. You become unreadable, unpredictable, and irresistible. Let me paint you a metaphor, folks. Imagine a flame. You put your hand too close, it burns you. It doesn't shout, it doesn't warn you, it just burns. That's what a man of emotional self-mastery becomes. He doesn't need to scream for attention or beg for love. His calmness, his composure, his refusal to be shaken. That's the fire that pulls them closer and makes them respect him, even fear losing him. Now, I know some of you feel the pull to react. When they ignore your text, you want to double text. When they pull away, you want to chase harder. When they insult you, you want to snap back. That's natural. But remember this, every time you react, you prove to them that they control you. Every outburst is a confession that they hold the strings. But every time you stay calm, you prove you've cut the strings. You show them that you are the one in control, not of them, but of yourself. And nothing is more magnetic than a man who is his own master. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And bravery here doesn't mean fighting wars. It means standing tall in the storm of your emotions and refusing to let them dictate your life. It means showing patience when anger boils inside. It means showing calm when panic whispers in your ear. It means showing discipline when desire tempts you to crawl back. That bravery is rare. That bravery is unforgettable. And that bravery is what makes them crave you, even when they don't understand why. Let's get real for a moment. Why is this so hard? Because emotions feel powerful. When you shout, when you demand, when you cry, it feels like you're doing something. But in truth, you're just giving away control. Control always belongs to the calm one, the patient one, the disciplined one. Think about a chess game. The player who reacts impulsively to every move always loses. The one who stays calm, who thinks 3 steps ahead, who doesn't flinch under pressure, that's the one who wins. And in the game of attraction, the rules are the same. They will test you. They will push your buttons. They will pull away just to see if you chase. They will say things just to see if you crack. And most men do crack. But you're learning something different. You're learning that composure is more powerful than words. That stillness is louder than shouting. That calmness is more magnetic than chaos. Here's the truth. The man who cannot control his emotions becomes a slave to them. But the man who controls them becomes a force of nature. And forces of nature don't beg for attention, they attract it. They don't chase love, they command respect. They don't crumble when ignored, they stand firm, and by standing firm, they become unforgettable. So the next time you feel the urge to react, remember this: you are not their puppet. You are not their toy. You are not a prisoner of their attention. You are a man who commands himself. And that command is what draws them closer. Because deep down, everyone is searching for someone unshakable. And when they see you stand tall in silence, they can't help but crave the strength they don't have. My friends, take this with you today. Emotional self-mastery isn't about pretending. It isn't about being heartless. It's about being free. Free from their games, free from their moods, free from the trap of begging to be seen. And when you live in that freedom, you rise above the noise. You stop being another man in the crowd. You become the rare one, the one they can't control, can't predict, can't forget. Write this in the comments to claim it. My control is my magnet. Let the world see it. Let them see that you're not here to be shaken. You're here to stand tall, unshakable, magnetic. And stay with me, because what comes next will reveal why indifference is the mirror that forces them to face their own irrelevance, and why nothing unsettles them more. Number 4, indifference as a mirror. Why their mind breaks when you stop reacting. Indifference is the revenge the soul takes on what it does not value. That quote cuts sharp, my friends, because it reveals a truth most people never want to admit. The greatest power you will ever have over someone who once thought they owned your emotions is not in shouting, not in arguing, not in proving yourself. It's in indifference. And indifference is terrifying because it acts like a mirror. It doesn't show them you, it shows them themselves. Picture this. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror after a long night out. You've been sweating, running, maybe even bleeding from a fight. When you look into that mirror, it doesn't comfort you, it doesn't lie to you, it doesn't say, "Don't worry, you're fine." No, it reflects exactly what you are. That's what indifference does. When you stop reacting, when you stop playing their games, when you show no movement, you hold up a mirror they cannot escape. And what they see isn't you, it's their own irrelevance. Now here's where it gets hard-hitting. Anger can be fought with anger. Jealousy can be met with reassurance. Even sadness can be soothed with sympathy. But indifference gives them nothing. No warmth, no hate, no energy to hold on to. And when they realize their actions no longer spark a reaction in you, panic sets in. Because the truth of human psychology is simple, people crave control. They need to feel like they can influence your emotions, bend your spirit, or at least leave a mark. But when you are indifferent, you silently scream, "You no longer matter." And there is nothing more crushing than that. Let's break another lie. You've been told that if you care harder, if you fight louder, if you argue stronger, then you prove your worth. But the reality is the opposite. Every time you show them that their behavior shakes you, you hand them proof of their power. They don't need to love you, they just need to know they can affect you. And when you break that cycle, when you finally stop bending, stop reacting, stop bleeding for validation, you take that power back. You close the door they once thought was always open. And nothing drives obsession like a closed door. Think of it like a locked safe. When it's open, anyone can peek inside. But when it's locked shut, suddenly it becomes irresistible. They imagine what's inside. They bang on it, test it, even dream about cracking it open. Your indifference is that safe. It denies them access to your emotions, and the denial is what makes them desperate. The Stoics knew this strength well. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Indifference is the highest form of that teaching. It means you refuse to let their absence dictate your loneliness. You refuse to let their presence dictate your happiness. You refuse to let their validation define your worth. You are unmoved, and being unmoved makes you untouchable. Now let me ask you, my friends, why do you think indifference feels so powerful? Because it's rare. In a world where everyone is desperate to prove, to argue, to chase, to win, the man who does not move stands apart. He becomes a wall, and walls drive people crazy. They can climb, they can scratch, they can scream, but the wall doesn't answer. And when you become that wall, you force them into battle with themselves. At first, they may laugh. They may pretend not to care. They may say, "Good, he's gone. He's silent. I'm free." But indifference isn't about the first moment. It's about the second, the third, the 10th. It's about the days when they expect your reply and it never comes. The nights when they expect your jealousy and it never arrives. The weeks when they wait for your return, only to realize you've moved on completely. That's when the mirror grows unbearable. And here's what dark psychology explains. People are addicted to influence. Influence is proof of value. When someone can still make you cry, scream, or beg, they feel relevant. But when you stop reacting, when your face stays calm, when your voice stays steady, when your silence replaces your old outbursts, you send the cruelest message of all. You are no longer relevant here. and that message burns deeper than anger ever could. Think of fire. If you feed it with wood, it blazes, it roars, it grows, but take the wood away, and it dies in silence. Their power over you is fire. Every reaction you gave was fuel. Every plea, every argument, every desperate message was wood on the flames. But when you detach, when you turn indifferent, you starve the fire. And what happens when the fire dies? The one who once danced around it is left shivering in the cold, haunted by the warmth they once took for granted. Now I know, folks, indifference isn't easy. It feels unnatural. You'll want to prove a point, to show them they were wrong, to let them know what they lost. But here's the paradox. By trying to prove, you break the power of indifference. The strength of indifference lies in its silence. It doesn't explain, it doesn't justify, it doesn't beg. It simply stands there like the oak tree in a storm, firm, still, unshaken. And while they thrash around in the wind, you become the one thing they cannot move. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's indifference. You don't mirror their pettiness. You don't mirror their chaos. You hold up the other mirror, the one that shows them the emptiness of their games, the irrelevance of their actions, the hollowness of their control. And once they see that reflection, they can't look away. So what happens inside them? They begin to spiral. They wonder, why doesn't he care anymore? Why doesn't he react? Did I lose him completely? They replay old conversations, searching for signs. They test you again, waiting for cracks. But the more indifferent you remain, the more desperate they grow. Because now it's not about love anymore, it's about control. They want the reaction back. They want to feel the influence they once had. And when it's gone, it gnaws at them, it consumes them, it becomes obsession. My friends, this is where you rise. This is where you prove to yourself that your peace is worth more than their attention. This is where you choose dignity over desperation. And when you do, you stop living for their approval and start living for your freedom. That's real power, not in making them chase, but in no longer needing them at all. So take this with you. Indifference is not weakness. It is the sharpest form of strength. It's the calmness that whispers, "I don't need you to be whole. I don't need you to be me. I've taken my power back, and you can't touch it anymore." That whisper will echo louder in their mind than any shout could. And in that echo, obsession is born. Write this in the comments if you're ready to live it. My indifference is my power. Let the world see it. Show them. Show yourself. Show everyone around you that you've stopped reacting, that you've stopped bending, that you've stopped playing their game. Because the moment you master indifference, you master the mirror. And that mirror is the one thing they can't escape. Stay with me, because what's coming next will cut even deeper. How uncertainty, that unfinished story in their mind, becomes the most addictive force of all, and why your silence leaves them with questions that will never let them sleep. Number 5. Uncertainty, the mind's most addictive poison. The human mind is tormented not by things, but by the uncertain opinions it forms about them. Those words echo from the Stoic Epictetus, and my friends, they may be the hardest truth you'll ever have to swallow. It's not certainty that drives people mad, it's uncertainty. Certainty brings peace, even if the truth is painful. But uncertainty, it's a poison that drips slowly, day after day, haunting every thought, pulling the mind into endless loops. And here's where the power of detachment shines brightest. When you walk away without explanation, when you stop giving answers, when you refuse to hand over closure, you don't just leave them behind, you leave them with questions, and questions unanswered are the seeds of obsession. Imagine this. You're watching a movie, edge of your seat, the tension rising, the mystery deepening. Then just before the final scene, the screen goes black. No ending, no resolution, no closure. What happens next? You can't stop thinking about it. You lie awake at night imagining possibilities, debating outcomes, inventing explanations. That's what uncertainty does. It chains the mind to what it cannot finish. Now apply that to relationships. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop giving them the luxury of knowing where you stand, you become that unfinished movie. You become the cliffhanger that never fades. At first, they might shrug. They might think they've won, that silence means you're broken, that absence means you've surrendered. But as days stretch into weeks, that confidence crumbles. The questions creep in. Why hasn't he called? Why didn't he fight for me? Did he move on? Is there someone else? Did I lose my hold on him? And because you're not there to answer, their mind supplies its own answers. And the mind always invents stories worse than reality. This is what dark psychology calls the Zeigarnik effect. The brain fixates on incomplete tasks. When something ends neatly, the mind lets it rest. But when it ends without closure, the mind replays it endlessly, desperate to resolve it. By detaching without explanation, by walking away without giving them the satisfaction of final words, you turn yourself into the unfinished task they can't cross off. And the more time passes, the heavier that task becomes. The Stoics would call this restraint. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." What greater proof of strength than refusing to hand over closure? Because closure isn't for you, it's for them. It's their way of soothing themselves, of tying you neatly into a past box. And when you deny them that, when you walk away with your dignity, your silence, your indifference, you force them to wrestle with their own mind. You force them to face uncertainty. And here's the brutal reality. Uncertainty hurts more than rejection. If you reject someone, they can heal. If you chase them and they reject you, they can move on knowing they had control. But if you detach without a word, you deny them the final act. You deny them the power of control. You become a mystery they can't solve. And mysteries haunt people more deeply than truths ever could. Think of it like an itch. A resolved situation is like scratching it. You get relief, it fades. But uncertainty is like an itch you can never reach. The more they try to ignore it, the more it burns. They scroll through old messages, they stalk your social media, they ask friends about you, they replay conversations in their head. Every unanswered question digs deeper. Every day of silence multiplies the weight. And slowly, uncertainty transforms into obsession. But let's be honest, my friends, it's not easy to give uncertainty. Your emotions will scream at you to explain, to justify, to prove, to say, here's why I'm walking away. But remember this, every explanation you give is a gift to them, not to you. It soothes their mind, but it robs you of power. The hardest discipline of detachment is resisting the urge to explain, to leave the ending unwritten, to let them choke on the silence. Now here's what happens inside them when you master this. They spiral, they imagine scenarios, each one worse than the last. Maybe he's with someone else, maybe he never cared, maybe he's happier without me, and because you're not there to confirm or deny, the spiral never ends. You become a shadow in their mind, shifting shape, haunting their quiet moments. And obsession doesn't grow from peace, it grows from torment. The Stoics also taught that uncertainty is not your burden to carry. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Let that guide you. Their suffering is not because of what you did. It's because of the stories their mind invents in the absence of answers. And the more their imagination runs wild, the stronger their craving becomes to know, to hear from you, to pull you back into their orbit. Think of your silence like a locked diary. They know there are pages inside, stories untold, secrets written, but the lock denies them. And the denial fuels desire. They obsess, not because of what's written, but because they'll never read it. That's the weight of uncertainty. You didn't have to give them anything. By giving them nothing, you gave them everything their mind can't stop chasing. Now, let me give you a metaphor that will stick. Imagine you're walking down a hallway with doors on both sides. One door is wide open. You can see the room clearly, nothing special. You walk past it without a second thought. But then you come to a door that's locked. You don't know what's behind it. And that locked door becomes irresistible. You think about it long after you've left the hallway. You dream about it. You invent possibilities. That's what detachment without explanation does. It locks the door, and they'll never stop wondering what was behind it. Here's the challenge, though. Uncertainty works slowly. It doesn't explode overnight. It builds day by day, like water dripping on stone. At first it seems harmless, but over time it carves deep cracks into the mind, and the longer you hold your silence, the deeper those cracks run, until one day the weight of unanswered questions breaks them. And when it does, my friends, you won't even care. Because while they spiral in uncertainty, you'll be living in peace. That's the paradox. They obsess, not because you forced them, but because you freed yourself. You broke the chain of explanation. You stopped giving what they didn't deserve. And in doing so, you became the very mystery their mind can't put down. So let me leave you with this. Uncertainty is not cruelty. It is clarity in disguise. By refusing to give closure, you refuse to give control. By leaving the story unfinished, you guarantee they'll keep rereading it forever. That's not revenge. That's discipline. That's freedom. Write this in the comments if you're ready to claim it. My silence creates uncertainty. Let the world see that you no longer fear being misunderstood, because your power is not in being explained, it's in being untouchable. And stay with me, because what comes next will cut even deeper. How detachment is not coldness, but the highest form of self-respect, and why raising your standards will always turn regret into obsession. Number 6. Detachment as self-respect. Why walking away raises your value. If you want to be respected by others, the great thing is to respect yourself. Only by that, only by self-respect, will you compel others to respect you. Those words from Fyodor Dostoevsky sting because they rip open a truth most people spend their whole lives running from. The way you treat yourself teaches the world how to treat you. And my friends, detachment isn't cruelty, it isn't heartlessness. It's the ultimate act of self-respect. Think about it. When you cling to someone who dismisses you, when you beg for attention that's withheld, when you keep showing up for someone who barely notices, you're not proving your love. You're lowering your standards. You're whispering to them, I don't deserve more than this. I'll accept scraps. And what happens when you accept scraps? They keep giving you scraps. Because why would they offer more if you've already shown you'll stay for less? Now picture another scene. Imagine a marketplace. On one stall, apples are being sold for pennies. They're soft, bruised, piled high. Nobody really cares for them. They're cheap, disposable. But then across the street, there's a jeweler. Inside the glass case, a diamond sits. No haggling, no begging, no discounts. The price is high and firm because the jeweler knows its worth. And here's the twist. People line up for the diamond, not the apples. Why? Because value commands respect. Detachment works the same way. When you stop lowering your price, your energy, your presence, your love, you stop being the apple stand. You become the diamond behind glass, rare, desired, untouchable. But let's break a lie right here. The world has told you that holding on, fighting harder, giving more is the mark of true devotion. They'll say, if you love her, prove it. Chase her. Show her you'll never give up. But that lie has destroyed more men than rejection ever has. Because when you chase someone who doesn't value you, you don't prove your devotion. You erase your dignity. And once dignity is gone, respect is gone. And without respect, desire dies. The Stoics knew this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because the world doesn't understand detachment. They'll say you're cold. They'll say you're weak. They'll say you gave up. But the Stoics understood the secret. When you detach, you're not walking away from them. You're walking toward yourself. You're choosing your dignity over desperation. You're choosing your standards over their validation. That's not weakness, my friends. That's the deepest form of strength. Let me ask you, why do you think regret always hits harder after someone has walked away, not while they were chasing? It's simple. As long as you keep showing up, as long as you keep answering the phone, as long as you keep proving your worth, they never have to fear losing you. But when you detach, when you raise your standards and refuse to be treated as an option, you trigger the most haunting realization: I no longer have access to him. And that, my friends, is when regret turns into obsession. Dark psychology explains it like this. People expect patterns. When someone is always available, they expect them to stay available. They come to believe he'll always be there, no matter how I treat him. But when you shatter that pattern by detaching, by refusing to play your old role, you break their sense of control. Their brain scrambles to adjust, to understand, to fix what feels broken. And that scramble breeds obsession. Your self-respect becomes the wall they cannot climb. And walls they cannot climb turn into obsessions they cannot ignore. Here's a metaphor for you. Imagine a dog that has always been fed at the same time every day. One morning, the bowl doesn't come. The dog paces, waits, barks, checks every corner of the house. It doesn't stop thinking about the missing food. Why? Because the pattern was broken. Your detachment works the same way. They expected your attention, your validation, your chasing. When it disappears, their mind can't let it go. And suddenly, the very presence they once overlooked becomes the one thing they crave. Now let's get real. Detachment is hard. It feels like punishment at first, both for them and for you. You'll feel the pull to explain, to soften, to give in. You'll tell yourself, maybe if I hold on just a little longer, they'll finally see my worth. But my friends, hear me clearly. They won't see it until you raise it. Nobody values what you don't value yourself. Detachment is the act of raising your worth so high that anyone who treated you as an option has no choice but to watch you walk away. And here's where the magic happens. The moment you detach, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in quiet, dignified self-respect, you shift the energy. Suddenly, they see you differently, not as the man who always chases, always bends, always explains, but as the man who doesn't beg, the man who won't settle, the man who knows his value and refuses to discount it. That's the man who becomes unforgettable. That's the man who triggers regret. That's the man who haunts their mind long after you've stopped thinking about them. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be." B1 detachment is how you become that man. You stop arguing about why they should value you. You stop trying to prove it. You simply walk away, carrying your dignity with you. And in doing so, you send the loudest message of all: I know my worth. And if you can't see it, I won't lower it. So, what happens next? They start to feel the void. They realize the access they once had is gone. They replay the times they dismissed you, the texts they ignored, the moments they pushed you aside, and each memory now carries weight because they know they'll never get it back. That's the cruelty of self-respect to those who took you for granted. It turns every past moment into a ghost that whispers, "You had him and you lost him." But here's the most important part. Your detachment is not for them. It's for you. It's not about making them chase. It's about proving to yourself that you don't need to. It's about looking in the mirror and knowing you chose dignity over desperation, that you refused to beg, that you honored your own value. And that, my friends, is how you win. Not by making them obsessed, but by freeing yourself so fully that their obsession is nothing more than an echo of your discipline. So let me leave you with this image. A king does not leave his throne to argue with peasants in the street. He doesn't explain why he sits higher. He doesn't beg for loyalty. He simply rules, and those who cannot respect it are left outside the gates. That's detachment. That's self-respect. You are the throne. Stop stepping down for those who don't deserve your presence. Write this in the comments to make it yours. My detachment is my respect. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that you're no longer living for scraps. You're becoming the diamond behind glass, the king on the throne, the man who knows his worth. And stay with me, because what comes next will reveal the secret weapon of attraction itself, the gravity of mystery, and why the unknown version of you will always pull harder than the one they thought they knew.